Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a tutorial all on one of my most signature blondes that I do, and it's going to be crazy probably for some of you guys to hear it, but we don't do a root tap, and on her we actually don't do a toner either. If you hear my dog barking in the background, I am so sorry. She is playing in the other room. But anyway, I am going to show you guys my foil placement that I do that, depending on the client's needs, doesn't always need a root tap. And kind of just describe too how I get my blondes bright enough where they don't always need a toner. So on her, we are just doing a half head today. So you're going to see my sectioning for that. I always like to do a mohawk sectioning. And one of the things that I like to do in my mohawks, especially if I'm just doing a half head, is, if you guys can see, I place my sectioning. Technically the half heads cover, for me, the sides, the topmost part of the crown, and the underneath hairline if needed. So what I just like to do is to start my mohawk and my side sectioning far back, way past like the top part of the head, and normally goes past like the occipital bone. And I always make sure, if anyone has any, like, most people either have a colic or some type of swirl in the back of their head, like in that top part, crown, occipital area. So I always make sure I go beyond that, basically, so that my main thing is that, if their hair splits in the back, even if they're just got like a half head or even just a partial, that top crown most area is always covered. And then I basically just gauge my sides from there. Wherever I started the mohawk at is basically then where I align the sides. That alone is going to help set you apart if you do want to specialize in blonding, is making sure that even if a client is doing a more quote unquote budget friendly or more of a maintenance appointment, that all their bases are still covered. I always kind of say, if you're doing a half head, it's like a way to cheat a full with how I place the highlights. And I always just like transparently let them know when it's getting to the point where they do need to go back to a full. And then same thing for a partial. If they normally get like half heads, the partial, with how I place it, is a cheat of the half head as well. And I am, again, like I said, very transparent of like what they're candidates of, what they're not. This client of mine is a very high coverage blonde right now. We go back and forth with her. You've probably honestly seen her in some of my videos. This is one of my longest clients. And I've known her for a long time, even before I was doing hair. So I'm always super comfortable with filming around her. She was my first person I ever filmed a hair tutorial with. So if you go back to my very first hair tutorial, it's literally with her. We've done things. We've done more dimensional blondes. We've done more shadow rooted blondes. So I know her needs. I know how her hair grows out. I know her hair very well. So I'm able to, like, again, just truly tell her like what she's a good candidate of and not. So right now we are doing just like very high impact blonding on her right now. We do soft dimension at the roots just so that it grows out nice and soft. But she right now is coming in around every 8 weeks to get her hair done. So with that, if my clients are coming in every 8 weeks to get their hair done, I honestly, more times than not, don't root tap them unless if they're a brunette, because there's honestly no need to, if I'm keeping it completely honest, if it's just a tap. Now, if they're doing like a lived-in color, that's a little different, but if it's truly like a highlight and they just want to make sure it grows out soft within like those 8 weeks, I think that you need to more so focus your foiling placement on that. I don't think that we should be just resulting to a root tap. Like I said, only if we're only root tapping for grow out purposes only. Now, before you come for me in the comments, if that's the look that they want, obviously do that. But if it's more so like, I want to be as blonde as possible, I just want it to grow out well, that's where it's like, let's find a way to place your foils in a way that it can grow out just fine then. So what I like to do to give it the appearance of a root tap is I just leave a little bit of dimension in this, just throughout my foiling placement in general. I feel like when I was first getting really into blonding, when the shadow roots were all the rage, I was doing like very, very, very high impact, very little dimension left out in between, and then root tapping over it. And like I said, that still is very well a trend. I'd still do that on a lot of my clients too. But I feel like people are definitely like more so embracing quote unquote natural applied colors. And I feel like too, the just especially on my blondes right now, the like uber blonde at the root is starting to come back in. I think girls are sick of like I see different tweaks of both. I've obviously like the recession blonde, which is literally just a root tapped blonde, and then I've seen, you know, like I said, my blondes that I think just also too with it being spring and summer. Like I know, you know, come fall, winter, people are gonna probably start bringing in a little bit more darker hues, but recently I've been doing a lot of this. So like I said, I leave a little bit of dimension out in between, and that soft little bit of dimension is going to help to make the highlights when they grow out. It's going to make them uh, feel a little softer because there's just a little bit more dimension left out than normal. Now, I do still do a money piece. It depends. I feel like that's the other thing that's been kind of changing is money piece trends have been kind of changing too. Now on this client, on my client here, she kind of just lets me honestly do whatever. She's not that picky as long as like she knows how I do her hair. So I did give her a money piece this time. I feel like it kind of helps for the blondes that like if they're getting dimension, if I know that they want to have as much coverage as possible and they're just doing a little bit of dimension for that softening, I do like to make sure that they have a bright but soft money piece. I don't want it to, you know, for these types of colors, you don't want the money piece to like be super standout-ish, but you do want it to be something where it just has that brighter impact up front and it slowly gauges as you work your way back to just it being a little bit more dimensional is kind of how I do it. So what I've been doing is starting off with, I always make my very first highlight on the money piece. I always make that a soft weave just because it kind of helps like mimic the hairline. No one's hairlines are like straight across. So I've found that when I do like a true slice, that first section, it just looks a little harsh. So I always start off with at least one soft weave and then I go back and then I go in as I make my way back. I do back-to-back slices until I get to the point where I'm ready to start and I make my transitional pieces in between my money piece and my standard highlights. I make it a very long and soft transition. So I do a lot of back-to-back slices. And then as you see me doing right now, I do what I call like soft weaves where I'm just doing like I'm just leaving out just a little bit. I'll do that for a couple sections. And then as I work my way further back, I will weave out a little bit more of like a 50-50 situation. And then I get to the point where I'm basically back to leaving out the same amount of dimension in between that I was in the back, basically. And that makes it super soft and it makes it to the point where there's just so much diffusion in that you see the money piece and you see the back of the head, but you can't really see where there's a start and stop, if that makes sense. And that's what I really strive to have in these sections. So with that, I have found that Mohawk sectioning is the best for this because it helps to keep things the same looking on both sides where they part their hair at. And it just makes things, even if they're, you know, whether they're changing their part, whether they're doing a middle part or whatever, just keeps things all the same all across the board. And then the soft money piece to transition is what's really helpful then with that too. Because I feel like at first I would do the money piece and I would do some transitional pieces, but nothing too crazy. I feel like that's been how I've been changing, how I've been doing my foiling placement lately. So yeah, I basically do that for the whole mohawk, and then I will obviously then come in and do the sides. And what's nice with the half head placement is that sometimes when I've done it before where I do a separate section for the back, sometimes I low-key will like forget and then I'll be like almost done. And I'm like, oh shoot, I need to foil the back. But if you do it how I do it now and you just kind of like place your mohawk down over the crown of the head. That's what's nice is that if you do need to do some underneath pieces for the blonde, you can do those really quick. But if not, you're probably done. On my client here, since she gets her hair done frequently enough, her underneath most area wasn't dark enough that she needed to get those highlights touched up. I feel like when I'm doing those, I feel like normally on my highlight clients, I'm normally not having to do underneath. It's normally if I'm doing like a balayage is where I sometimes have to. Because normally their roots aren't that grown out in the back where like you're going to see it. Unless if they wear their hair up truly like all the time. Now I'm here to the sides. And the sides for the money piece part, I do basically the same thing. Start off with some weaves, and then I'll slice, and then I'll transition back. Make sure that you are treating your sides as a money piece, because it is. That's what's also going to help to make it look super fluid also. So I always like to make sure I'm following the hairline, the side hairline for this. And then I will just like, I basically just follow the curvature of the head and like every client's growth pattern on the sides to help dictate like my sectioning and stuff like that. I don't like to have it anything like super cookie cutter, because it just, I'm very big into like curating my blondes basically to what they need. Another big thing too, while you're also making sure to get the treating the side like a money piece, make sure you're also getting that ear area very well also, because especially on like highlight blondes, that's where if they pull their hair forward, that's where they're going to see a lot of dark pockets. You'll see me as I'm working my way back, making sure that I'm getting that like top ear area. No, I'm not doing it right now. Sorry. I say that is just as much of the money piece as it is the top. And I think that's another thing that sets you apart from other blonde specialists and other just like colorists in general, is your attention to detail basically to all parts of the head. That once when I kind of started doing that, that really started to change the game for me. So all right, so let's talk about how I talked about earlier how I kind of dictate how we don't do a root. So I kind of talked earlier about how I don't always do a root tap and what candidates are best for that. So I don't really feel like we need to touch on that as much, but in terms of the no toning, this has been something that's been a little extra new to me this year, something that I have been playing around with. I have so many, like I said, I do a lot of blonding, right? And I have a lot of my blondes that I feel like one of the most popular blonding trends right now is blondes wanting to be just as bright as possible. Not necessarily ashy, not necessarily super warm, buttery. There are the warm, buttery blondes that are popular too, but just people just wanting, again, just as much brightness as they can get. Now, on my client here, we did a buttery blonde on her last year for the summer and loved it. However, every time she would come back in, her color seemed like as it would fade, it would just make her blonde look darker and kind of, I don't want to say dull, but yeah, I felt like every time she was darkened down to like a level 8. And as you guys can see, I can get her to like a level 9 just fine. So last year I started to toy around with the placement of not toning her, because I feel like on these blondes, unless they want to see like a lot of yellow, if they're a level 7 or above, if they want to be more of like a quote unquote warmer blonde, they can kind of get away with not toning it, as long as with the pictures, if you can tell that that's something that their hair is going to truly like naturally lift to. And like I said, on my client here, we're so comfortable with each other. So I was like, let me play around with this on you. And if we like it, great. If not, we can just tone you. It's literally not that hard. So here are the things that I make sure that I do to have my blondes still be bright without toning them. So if you guys saw earlier, I clarified all my color clients with the L'Oreal Metal Detox. That alone helps to make sure that any impurities that may be on her hair from, just wear and tear from the last time I saw her until now, that gets all those out. And then what I do instead to ensure the brightness, but without dulling her down, is I do a wet balayage at the shampoo bowl. This is going to also to just further brighten things. It kind of just helps to like open her cuticle, again, remove those impurities, anything, and just kind of give her a little extra oomph. So here I'm just showing you guys the foil placement. And like I said, it's gorgeous. Literally, I would be sad to root tap over that basically. So what I like to do is bring a bowl of lightener to the bowl with me. And I like to use the Framar Power Painter brush, I think is what this is called. And I literally just paint her lightener on like I'm doing a balayage. And I also make sure to like massage it in so it's getting saturated all over. And I will don't race the clock, but like also to try to apply this in kind of a like moderate speed. just so that everything comes on at the same time and you don't have like one side done faster than the other. Obviously, this is overlapping blonde too, so you want to be very careful with that. My client is also dealing with, she just graduated college and moved back home, and at home she has a lot of hard water. So we did notice some hard water buildup and it kind of dries her hair out. So I was being careful with that too. But that's kind of why I say just try to get things on in a generally fast manner so that it doesn't have to sit on any longer than it needs to. Now, if their hair is too compromised, don't do this. Like, it's not worth it. But this is something where I will literally just like leave this on for anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes, and it truly makes all the difference. And sometimes afterwards, I will shampoo them with purple shampoo, or on her, I have been using a purple mask, and it's the one from OLIGO. It's their Blacklight purple mask. I was using that years ago, and I totally forgot how much I loved it. And it's been the perfect oomph for my blondes that I don't tone, where it just kind of helps to, again, like brighten a little bit, but without like truly adding like color over top of it. And I've just been loving doing these blondes lately. It's definitely been my most favorite trend. One, probably just because it's something different, but two, it truly just helps, I feel like, to enhance all my blondes' natural features, because like it just is truly their raw blonde underneath. So again, you obviously can't do this with every blonde. I always say, if you know that you can get them to like a true level 9 underneath, if their needs are that they just want to have a lot of brightness and like a little bit of natural warmth, and they just kind of like this more like truly natural, like as bright as possible blonde, the only way that I would be able to replicate this with a toner is using like a level 10 and a ton of clear. So I look at it as like, if you're going to dilute it like crazy, you might as well maybe just not tone it and just use some purple shampoo at home. Plus, this is the easiest blonde for my clients to maintain, because the only fading that there is just some like dulling down over time, basically. So I always I'd recommend my clients to use like brightening shampoos over purple shampoos for this, or clarifying shampoos. Again, same thing over the purple, because it can be a little dulling. But here's the after. I hope you guys like this. Like I said, this is definitely like my signature blonde that I have been doing, and I hope you guys learned something new, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.